You know, when we needed a name and everybody was thinking of a name, and he thought of Beatles.
Why the BEA instead of the BE?
Well, actually, you know...
Well, you know, if they left it with BEE, it was hard enough getting people to understand why it was BEA, never mind.
Paul, what do you expect to find here in Australia?
Australians.
You're going to be surprised. Do you have any acknowledged leader of the group?
No, not really. Since the woman on the film cut it good, but I don't trust anybody else.
This is the film Beatlemania, is it?
No, it's not called that. That's another story.
It's got Hard Day's
Night, it's called.
Are you satisfied with the finished product?
Well, it's as good as anybody that makes a film who can't act, you know.
Are you individually millionaires yet?
No, that's another lousy room. I wish we were.
Brian Epstein a millionaire.
No, even he's not one, poor fellow.
Where does all the money go?
Well, a lot of it goes to Her Majesty.
She's a millionaire.
Look into my eyes like a window. Wherever it takes me, I will know. In spite of all the danger, I will go.
They think your haircuts are un-American.
Well, it was very observant of them, because we aren't American.
As long as you're with me, I don't care. 'Cause in spite of all the danger, I'll be there. You know that I love you. You say you love me too. You give me all those things that make me glad when I am blue. If you listen to my heart, you will hear though you won't see. There's so much love that's waiting there behind the beat. The way you look so fine when you're with me all the time, it makes me happy, girl, to know that you are mine. And when I feel so good inside, from my head down to my feet, it's only love that's waiting there behind the beat. You give me all the love I need. You know you give me everything I need. And I want you by my side. I'm gonna keep you by my side.
What makes the Beatles so good?
I don't know, they're just great, they're adorable, they sing great, and they write their own songs, and all the songs are great. Even the songs that are crummy, they sing great, so it doesn't matter.
Don't you think they look silly with those?
I think they look adorable.
Behind the beat, behind the beat, oh yeah, behind the beat, behind the beat.
Can we please have quiet? Quiet, please. Hey!
Let the feasting begin.
Unless you keep quiet, we can't even have it, Brennan. Will you please shut up? Shut up.
Listen, I got a question here, very quick. You want to get a haircut at all?
No. I had one yesterday. That's no lie.
What do you think of Beethoven?
There's one over here. Great. Especially his poems. I keep cracking that guy today. I'm sick of that one.
What do you think your music does for these people?
I don't know. Well, it pleases them, I think. Well, they must do because they're buying it.
Why does it excite them so much?
We don't know, really. If we knew, we'd form another group and be managers.
Charge! We're What's Happening. We are What's Happening. This is Cousin Brucey of WA Beatle C, your 24-hour Beatle station. It's 10:30 Beatle time. The temperature is 36 Beatle degrees. Today is the day.
Have you got a song for them when they get here?
Yeah.
Let's hear it.
We love you, Beatles. Oh, yes, we do. We don't love anyone as much as you. When you're not with us, we're blue.
Have you met any interesting American girls?
Not yet. We're hoping.
What do you think of the police protection you've been receiving here in the city?
It's marvelous. They're doing a great job, looking after us.
Are the crowds as large as you expected?
No, we didn't expect anything like this, no.
What's the most interesting offer you've ever received?
Oh, yes. Had a lot of interesting offers, actually. No comment.
Whilst in America, the Beatles took the opportunity to meet Cassius Clay, the then world heavyweight boxing champion, who later changed his name to Muhammad Ali. Watch out, champ, the Beatles are a knockout.
It's undoubtedly Park Lane's week of the year. All the signs here that the expected arrivals are the Beatles coming to the Dorchester for the Variety Club Show Business Luncheon. If you've got money, you don't expect to have to fight your way into the Dorchester, unless you're so famous that you can't move for your army of fans. George and Paul, and of course Ringo and John, were safe at last, with Variety Club's British founder, C.J. Latter, Steptoe and Son. A few days before this event, Mr. Latter had received the CBE. For the moment, the big gathering of entertainment's VIPs concentrated on the lunch. Hope it didn't taste like the Mersey. Opposition leader Harold Wilson wasn't opposing anybody just now, just polishing up his wit for the benefit of everybody later on. Variety Club ties, the status symbol in show business. No difficulty for Ringo, and here with the Beatles was Brian Epstein, their famous manager.
Now, when this tour's over, then you'll have a bit of a chance to get out and get some air, as you say, with your family.
I'm not sure, you see, because it's when the tour finishes, we go back and do the premiere of the film. It's one of those periods that Brian says, I'm not quite sure what we've got. And it always sort of fills up gradually with TV and radio. So.
Now, you mentioned Brian. I was going to mention it. How did you get associated with Brian Epstein, and how much do you feel you owe him?
Well, we owe him 1 and 6 exactly. But we owe a lot of our success to him, you know, a great deal.
Yes.
Because I think we might have been able to make hit records because we would have written the songs anyway. This one's run out, and but we wouldn't have gone. We wouldn't have. He controlled it, you see.
A lot of people have said that Epstein has emerged as a genius of show business. Do you agree with this?
Well, I'm a bit odd, you know, I don't like using the word genius, but there's so many geniuses on LP covers and things like that, that I think he's done more than anybody expected him to do, which entitles people that don't know what's happening to call him a genius. He's very good. I wouldn't say he's a genius.
I want to ask you one direct personal question. Is he a friend?
Oh, definitely. You see, we can't get on with anybody for a long time unless they are a friend, because we're so closely knit.
Well, I've noticed this with the others in your entourage. How many of them are really very close to you?
Well, Neil, he's our personal road manager. Well, he was in from the start. He went to school with Paul and George. And the other fellow, Derek, we've known for about a year. But he's sort of one of those people that clicked as soon as you meet him, you know. So that, and Malcolm, we've known from the cabin. He carries the guitars round, you know, and all that. Well, he used to work at the cabin, a big bouncer, throwing all the teddy boys out. You know.
Well, John, I've said it 100 times already to you, but I hope you have happy memories of your Australian trip when you get home and can think about it.
Thank you, Malcolm. We will do.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Alice Pollock and Ozzie Clark, two of our way-out trendbenders, invited us to their autumn fashion collection. They also invited Yoko Ono and John Lennon. He's on the left.
Like most of us in the early days of rock and roll, we like cars. And John started with the double headlamp Phantom 5 Rolls Royce. My partner then, Andrew Oldham, he wanted the same one. Then John decided to have his painted psychedelic.
The opening of a Richard Lester film has become an event. And when his current film, How I Won the War, premiered in London, the crowds threatened to break through the police barriers.
It caused quite a stir. But it was just John, you know, they were dropping acid, so they decided to make the car look like it was an acid Rolls.
You hand it over, yeah. Where's John's balls? There's yours.
Yeah, thank you very much. George.
There's yours, John.
I
think somebody's got to say a word.
Just with the boys.
It's very nice indeed to get, especially to get one each, because we usually have a bit of trouble cutting them in four. I'd just like to say thank you very much. It's a great honour.
Thank you.
Now, Paul.
Same goes for me. Thank you very much for giving us this Silver Heart. But I still think you should have given one to good old Mr. Wilson.
Ringo. Anyone who knows us know I'm the one that never speaks, so I'd just like to say thanks a lot.
I'd just like to say the same as the others. Thanks for the Purple Hearts. Silver! Oh, yeah. Sorry about that, Harold. We'd like to sincerely thank you all, and we've got to go now because the fella on the film wants us, and he says it's costing him a fortune. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Their admirers spanned the generation gap, and in 1965 they were all awarded the MBE.
Tell me how you feel. Tell me love is real. Words of love you whisper soft and true. Darling, I love you.
A furor is developing over comments John Lennon made. Quote, Christianity will go. It will vanish and shrink. We're more popular than Jesus, unquote. Here in Tokyo, violence broke out when right-wing fanatics demonstrated against the Beatles and their effect on Japanese youth.
This is Tommy Charles. If you, as an American teenager, are offended by statements from a group of foreign singers which strike at the very basis of our existence as God-fearing, patriotic citizens, then we urge you to take your Beatle records, pictures, and souvenirs to the pickup points about to be named. And on the night of the Beatles' appearance in Memphis, August 19th, they will be destroyed in a huge public bonfire at a place to be named soon. Stay tuned to Wacky for further development.
Now, this religious controversy, I know you don't want to say too much about it, but does it worry you that it's going to boil up when you get to the States?
Well, it worries me, yes, but I hope everything will be all right in the end, as they say.
Do you think this is going to be a controversial tour like the Philippines was?
Oh, no. No, it's going to be fine. We meant more to kids than Jesus did, or religion at that time. I wasn't knocking it or putting it down, I was just saying it as a fact.
John is deeply concerned and regrets that people with certain religious beliefs should have been offended in any way whatsoever.
It doesn't matter about people not liking our records or not liking the way they look or what we say. You know, they're entitled to not like us, and we're entitled not to have anything to do with them if we don't want to, or not to regard them. You know, we've all got our rights, you know.
Far from the noise and pace of city life, in the cool, clear air of Rishikesh, North India, Pathé News reports from the meditation retreat of Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, the man who, through transcendental meditation, is currently bringing peace of mind to the Beatles. Flower-loving Yogi told reporters that his brand of peace of mind could only be truly appreciated by intelligent men of the world with rewarding activities and high incomes. Among his most valued disciples were the Beatles, top of the pop pupils. He did his best to keep them away from outsiders, but George had a way for us. Keeping company with himself, it could be part of the treatment, John stalked along the shady paths. Ringo enjoyed the peace of togetherness with Mrs. Ringo. It was a very peaceful scene. So different from those not-so-far-off times when just a glimpse of the Beatles was enough to ruin the meditation chances of anyone within earshot.
You know that I love you. You say you love me too. You give me all those things that make me glad when I am blue. If you listen to my heart, you will hear both you and sing. There's so much love that's waiting there behind the beat. The way you look so fine when you're with me all the time, it makes me happy, girl, to know that you are mine. And when I feel so good inside, from my head down to my feet, it's only love that's waiting there behind the beat.
Ah, those were the days. Now, 2 by 2, the world-famous quartet stroll quietly in the lovely meditation preserve. Paul and Ringo shed the cares of their successful world. Close behind, George and John, complete with blanket for even more peace. That great screen star Greta Garbo used to crave solitude. In these days, it's even harder to come by. But the Beatles have found it.
After the Shea Stadium, there was nothing else they could ever want to achieve as artists.
Well, well, I think they're cute, except for that haircut, too much.
We've had offers from people as high as $70 or so for tickets, but of course they're all gone. There aren't any available at any price.
In fact, we've had calls from dignitaries and the British government here in town, from important show business people wanting tickets the last moment, and we can't come up with a ticket anywhere. The kids have the entire house for themselves.
As a matter of fact, I think it was Frank Sinatra's office called to your house this morning.
Wanted 20 tickets. It's just not available.
Just don't have any tickets left.
I
have a group of girls here from Arroyo High School in El Monte, and we came down here today to see what kind of seats we had to see the Beatles. I bought 10 tickets for $85, and I don't think the girls would be willing to give up their tickets, but I heard that someone had offered $70 for a ticket, and for that I might.
Well, gosh, I wouldn't sell my ticket for anything, but I might if I could touch the Beatles, if I could just touch Ringo, you know, backstage or anything, man. Oh, I just love them. Oh, they're so tough now.
It was the ultimate rock and roll concert that nobody to this day, even in with the great concerts given by Led Zeppelin, nobody has ever topped that concert. It wasn't a concert of music, it was a concert of the crowd. And it was the top pinnacle of anybody's career that still hasn't been topped today.
How are you, Rock? Beatle fan, huh?
Yeah.
Are you really?
Yeah.
Got the records?
Yeah, a couple.
Have a drink on me.
I am a Beatle fan. A very big Beatle fan. That's why I'm here.
They're really a great, talented group.
Yes, they are.
No matter what anyone says.
Anytime you can do the kind of business that they just did at the Met Park in New York City, there must be an awful lot of people that like you. And they made 2 great pictures. So I guess they're great.
Well, I know you'll have a nice evening. Good luck.
Thank you.
I'm going Sunday.
Oh, yeah?
Just to see the reaction of the audience. I think that's even more important, I think.
Pleasure to
I've
see you,
heard
sir.
them. Yes, nice to see you, too.
Have a nice evening.
Thank you.
What do you want? Oh, well, what are you going to do in there, Groucho? Are you going in to listen to Beatle music?
I'm going in and get drunk.
You wouldn't dare. Are you really?
Of course I am.
Brought the charming family with you?
Whenever I can get a free drink, I'll go anywhere.
You bet your life.
Yeah. That's a very funny answer.
What did you want to do before you became a Beatle?
Nothing really. I just wanted to be rich, you see. But I wanted to be a Beatle mainly.
What do you define as a Beatle?
That's what we are, you know. A group, singing and selling records. That's what I wanted to do.
How would you define Beatlemania?
I couldn't define it. You know, a lot of people have tried. I'm not going to try. Leave it to the psychologists and let them get it wrong.
I can't let you inside the bowl to take pictures because of security and fire police.
Anything else?
Because there are no motion pictures to be shot inside the bowl.
Mr. Hahn, I didn't know you were a Beatle fan. What do we have here, young daughter?
Yes, Janice and I are here at the Hollywood Bowl. We're Beatle fans, especially Janice.
How old are you?
I'm 13.
You're really crazy about the Beatles, huh?
Yes.
I'm surprised at you.
Well, you know, I come to the Hollywood Bowl for many symphonies and fine programs, but my daughter makes this a command performance, and so I feel this is important as any other event here at the Hollywood Bowl. She thinks so too, don't you?
How'd you talk your father into bringing you here tonight?
Well, I just put on my special charm for him and told him I'd really like to come a lot, and he kind of, you know, how fathers
yeah?
all.
We can't go in there and shoot film. Just tell me that much, will you? Yes or no?
As a protest against violence and war, especially Britain's involvement in Biafra, which most of the British public aren't aware of, because all the press, TV and radios slant all the news from Biafra. All the stuff I learnt on Biafra from journalists, off-the-cuff folks, is a different story, and I began to be ashamed of being British. And I'm a patriotic nationalist, if the truth will out, and Yoko can vouch for that. I'm always fighting about what Britain invented, radar, and what all the different things we've done. But every day I just began to worry a bit more about it, and I was going to send the MBE back anyway. I could have done it privately, but the press would have found out anyway. He would have been here a week later instead, less impact.
Yoko's influence on John was nothing short of phenomenal. She gave him the ability and the courage, probably the courage more than anything else, to go out there and do exactly what you wanted to do. Express yourself. Doesn't matter whether you got criticised for it. Doesn't matter whether other people wanted to judge you for it, because they didn't have any right to judge you for it. But she was the one that said, this is the way I'm going to press your buttons, you've got it, go do it, and he did it.
We've got some acorns with us that we hope to give to all the heads of state we can get to see everywhere.
What do the acorns signify?
They're symbolic of seed, which is symbolic of life, you know, and we'd like the presidents of different places to plant the seeds as a positive move towards peace instead of just shaking hands on photographs and talking about talks they're going to have about peace. I think they might think I'm going to hot up the revolution, you know. I want to cool it down.
You're against revolutionary violence, too. I like your song.
I'm against violence, you know, period.
Whether
you know, violence begets violence, as far as I'm concerned. It's been proved by what's going on in the States and the protest marches in Grosvenor Square in London. The only result of that was a lot of smashed heads and front-page headlines about violence. And it wasn't the press's fault, nor the cops' fault, nor the minority left-wing students' fault, or whatever they're called, you know. It was just because the whole form they take doesn't work, you know. It doesn't work because that's what happens when you do that. And we're saying this is one other way of doing it. This money, I'm using my money and my time to promote peace. And when the money runs out and the time runs out, we should have peace by then.
Yeah, you know, I just say, whatever, violence begets violence. And, you know, I don't believe in anything else. And I don't believe there's any park or anything worth getting shot for. And you can do better by moving on to another city or going to Canada or go anywhere. And then they've got nothing to attack and nobody to point a finger at. You don't need all that education. You don't need to get your whatever it is, exams that you're going to finish. What for? To turn into them? Just move off rather than get killed. Stay at home or stay in bed or make love, not war. That's all we're saying. Just remember that. You should keep up a constant day-to-day solid advertising campaign as they do to us. They're on all the time selling their war and selling their products. We must do the same. You're always saying entice them and con them. You know, you've got the brains and you can do it.
But we have the organization.
What?
We can do it. We can make it.
You can make it, man. We can make it together. We can get it together. We can get it together. Now, that's all.
John, why are you being deported?
Well, the sort of official reason is something about we overstayed, both of us, so that's reason enough to throw us out. The other official reason is that I was bussed in England for pot. And the real reason is because I'm a peacenik.
What the immigration is asking me to do really is to take a decision on whether choosing my husband or my child. And it's a terrible situation to be in.
Will you now stop speaking out against the war because of
No, nothing will stop me, and whether I'm here or wherever I may be.
The great thing that John Lennon had was his ability to speak exactly how he felt. He didn't pander to people. He wasn't a diplomat like Paul McCartney was.
Did you ever talk with John about his problems with the FBI?
He wanted so much to stay. And what you do is you try to write letters to them to affect them. So, you know, all artists calling each other, come on, John's in another puddle now about this. So, you know, come up with another letter.
How did it affect him personally and creatively?
It obsessed him. And it made him just hopping nervous. I'm sure he got a great deal done anyway, but it's kind of like being in a court case. It's sort of like being hunted by the cops, since that's in fact what they were doing, where they were invading his privacy, trying to follow him, tap his phone, all the, you know, against the Fourth Amendment stuff. And they just were using all of their force and authority and all kinds of personnel simply to entrap him. illegally in anything that they could make cause for kicking him out of the country, deporting him. Well, why, you wonder? Well, why? Because he was extremely effective spokesperson for the peace movement. And I think, and of course, you know, he's beloved, a musician and so forth. And that gave him great power when he would speak out so strongly, not just, you know, going along with, but really putting himself on a limb for causes. He had a kind of activism which we're simply not accustomed to in artists anymore.
What was John's impression of New York?
New York was tremendously exciting to him because it was as familiar and in English and all that as London, but totally different too. And he hadn't really seen it that much yet. So he had, by the time he got here, come very far from his early roots and early experience as a kid musician, suddenly very rich and popular. And he'd had a good deal of time to grow up on that. And the 10 years he was here, he was really involved in politics in a way. I bet he wasn't in England, because that movement was just taking shape and it was happening here. The whole world was opening up, and you know, all the arts, art history, and international politics, the fact that you could do something and change the world a bit, which we were all drunk on.
I don't know what I actually do with the thoughts, but they come out either on film or on paper or on tape. I've just got lots of tape, which I suppose if I put onto paper, it'd be a book. But it's just a matter of, do I want to make those tapes into paper or make the tapes into records?
Does it feel the same to you when you're writing something on paper and when you're writing a song lyric?
It does now. In the old days, I used to think if songwriting was this, you know, and I love you and you love me, and my writing was something else, you know, even if I didn't think of it quite like that. But then I just realized through Dylan and other people, Bob Dylan, not Thomas, that it is the same thing, you know. That's what I didn't realize, being so naive, that you know, you don't write pop songs and then you do that and then you do that. That everything you do is the same thing, so do it the same way.
It was one of these times where John wanted to, just wanted to jam. It was like a Saturday morning, and he just, you know, John wanted to jam. He just wanted to have a good time, you know. Man's got the money to have a good time, so he went in, and it was, I think it was John, Harry, I don't know if it was Klaus Vorman on bass, I'm not sure who was playing bass, it's been a long time. And they just went in, they just got in, he said, I just want to play old rock and roll songs. So in the course of doing this, somewhere along the line, he invited Paul Simon in. So Paul goes in, shakes hands, all the introductions, and he says, Paul brought his bass. Brought his acoustic. So he says, what are we doing? John says, well, we're just going to jam. He said, it's just a fun thing. He said, just get into the moment, but I'll tell you when to come in. Paul said, okay. So John started strumming, and he's playing. And after a few minutes, like everybody, you know, John starts singing. Paul's like this. So then Paul starts to play, thinking he should jump in. So he starts, and John says, no, wait. He stopped at me, stop. I'll let you know when to come in. So he starts up again. And he starts playing, and a few more minutes go by, and he's singing a verse, and Paul's like, all of a sudden Paul starts playing, and John says, no, I'll tell you when to play. So this goes on like 2 or 3 times, maybe 4 times. Finally, the 5th time this happens, Paul gets frustrated, puts his guitar down and walks outside, and now he's in the control room with me, while John and Harry are like working on something, and he's walking back and forth in the control room saying, who does he think he is? So he's John Lennon. He says, I'm Paul Simon, I'm as famous as him. And I'm saying, oh yeah? And that was it. So while this is going on, John sees Paul's agitated. So he comes down, he says, what's the matter? And he says, well, you invite me here to play. Every time I play, you stop me from playing. He says, why wouldn't I came in there? So John says, you little twit. And they went back, and Paul finally got his guitar. And John said, well, if you don't want to play the way, I'll tell you what, if you don't want to play, then don't go home. You might as well go. Paul got his guitar and left. And we just later on, I can't go into the expletives that John used, but John was like beside himself. He said, I invite the guy to play, and the guy's making a big deal. I said, John, you didn't let the guy play, though.
The murder of John Lennon in New York last night is full of ironies. He just started a successful musical comeback after years of withdrawal. In his last recorded interview, he said what he liked about New York was the security, even the autograph hunters who only wanted a signature and then left him alone. And the man charged with Lennon's murder was an autograph hunter, Mark David Chapman, who, it's alleged in court this afternoon, came from Hawaii specially to kill Lennon. Yet, according to Chapman's lawyer, he admired Lennon. He liked him very much. And why did he do it? Well, ironically again, when Chapman came face to face with a man he admired, a man known for his love of playing with words, there was no communication between them. I understood his words, said Chapman. I didn't understand his meaning. Well, no one can understand the meaning of Lennon's death, particularly the citizens of his adopted city, New York, from where Peter Hobday reports. He begins outside the luxurious Dakota apartment block where Lennon was shot.
It's now 14 hours since John Lennon was shot here at the entrance to the Dakota building on West 72nd Street in the center of New York. And in those 14 hours, there's been a crowd here standing in more or less silent vigil. And the flowers have been piling up at the gate.
He's not dead. They're just saying that.
Well, the doctor just announced it?
Yes, but I don't care. They're just saying that to get people to leave. He's not dead. John Lennon can't be dead.
Mr. Lennon was struck several times. We're not positive at this time as to how many times he was struck. He went up the stairs. There are 5 steps that lead up into the watchman's area of the Dakota. He went through that area into an office inside, where he collapsed to the floor.
John Lennon was a New Yorker by adoption. And as soon as the word of the shooting was out, carried by radio stations across the city, his admirers started to gather. Their reaction was one of disbelief.
The body has been taken over town across to East 30th Street to the medical examiner's office. And the medical examiner's office told the BBC this morning that 4 bullets were in fact shot into John Lennon, one of which went through the body, one of which remained. It's thought that he died almost instantly. Ringo Starr arrived in the city this morning, went to the Dakota, and since then has refused to make any comment whatsoever. As for the suspect, who remained here after he had shot Mr. Lennon, he's now, at the present moment, awaiting arraignment and to be charged on first-degree murder. Nobody knows why he came to New York in the first place, or indeed what the motive was in what seems to be a totally senseless killing. Ringo Starr had chartered a private plane from Bermuda, and he got into the Dakota building through the back to avoid that large crowd out front, which had been filling up both sides of the street, growing steadily in numbers since first light. He stayed altogether about 2 hours. The shooting happened just before 11 o'clock on Monday night, as the Lennons came back from their recording studios.
I saw John and Yoko get out of the other limousine. They walked into the gate, and oh God, let me sure, take your time. And then I heard four or five shots. They were ear-shattering. I heard Yoko, and I heard a woman screaming. It was Yoko. She was screaming, "Help me!"
Later, the local police station, the 20th Precinct, released the official version.
Has been about the Dakota for the last several days. He was there on Saturday asking about Mr. Lennon. He was there on Sunday asking about Mr. Lennon. And he was there again this afternoon when Mr. Lennon and his wife left for a recording session. He was able to obtain an autograph on an album from Mr. Lennon as he left for the recording studio where he was going. He remained at that location all evening waiting for Mr. Lennon to come back. Sometime shortly before 11 o'clock, John Lennon and his wife arrived back at the Dakota in a limousine. They parked the limousine on the curb right outside the Dakota. There is a driveway into which they might have gone, but on this occasion did not. They got out of the car, out of the limousine, and walked into the archway area of the Dakota. To the right, as you walk in the archway area, is kind of a vestibule, which has a doorway, a glass doorway. This individual, Mr. Chapman, came up behind him and called to him, Mr. Lennon, as he arrived at that doorway. And then in a combat stance, he emptied the Charter Arms .38 caliber gun that he had with him and shot John Lennon.
The body was then taken to the Roosevelt Memorial Hospital a few blocks away from the Dakota. John Lennon was dead on arrival. This morning, the body was taken off to the city morgue, and Patrolman Tony Palmer was with the corpse.
Arrived at the hospital, I was informed that it was John Lennon inside, and I had Yoko Ono with me, and then I realized it was her. As a matter of fact, I had given her a dime to make a phone call. She wanted to call friends, you know. And at that time, I just thought it was, you know, I was just trying to be.
What have you been feeling since then?
Well, you know, I feel bad about it. You know, I was a Beatle fan when I grew up in that age.
It froze me. I came last night for basically my own reasons to show support for whatever. It wasn't really morbid curiosity. And this morning, I think I was here curious to see how everyone else reacted.
Symbolized hope, a new life, a new beginning. He was a great man.
You look into my eyes like a window. Wherever it takes me, I will know. In spite of all the danger, I will go. Don't know just what I'll find, what I'll see there. As long as you're with me, I don't care. 'Cause in spite of all the danger, I'll be there. You're the only one that keeps me satisfied. Oh, oh, oh. You're the only love that makes the world seem right. The world seem right. Oh, yeah.
John Lennon's death has shocked people all over the world. Yugoslav radio played many of his records today. East German radio paid tribute to him for his anti-war work. His fellow Beatles were in a state of shock. Paul McCartney said today that he can't yet take in the news. He said, "John was a great guy who'll be missed by the whole world." George Harrison was tonight said to be stunned. He said that after all we went through together, I had and still have great respect for him. All over the pop world, the reaction was one of complete despair. Mick Jagger, speaking from Paris, claimed that he was shattered by the news.
She was described as a very private person, uncomfortable with the publicity, unwilling to accept any money for her story or profit from the tragedy. She referred most questions to attorney Brooke Hart, but when she spoke, her voice was quiet and firm.
I just want to say that I'm just still, again, very concerned about Mark, and I'm just very, very sorry that this had to happen to Yoko Ono and her family, and that her husband had to die.
Gloria did not do anything or participate in any way in this trip in a knowing way or in a way in which she did consciously in any way lend any support to Mark's efforts.
Hart seemed to endorse the theory that Chapman had a confused personality, perhaps thinking he was John Lennon, and the man he is accused of shooting was an imposter. Mrs. Chapman talked of her religious beliefs and how that will guide her.
I'm a Christian, and I believe that forgiveness is one of the greatest things. I've always felt that I'm a very forgiving person. And I have not yet not forgiven Mark for anything he's done.
And if she could give him a message?
Well, tell him I love you.
Under heavy guard, Mark Chapman was brought from prison to the State Supreme Court in Manhattan to hear the judge's sentence. Chapman showed no emotion whatsoever when the sentence of 20 years to life was handed out. But before that moment, there was to be detailed evidence about his state of mind. Outside the courtroom were many Lennon fans. Security measures were strict when they filed in, as there have been many threats against Chapman's life since the murder. Today, Chapman's lawyer, who originally had wanted him to plead not guilty because of insanity, unsuccessfully applied to have the guilty plea reversed. Then, a leading psychiatrist, Dr. Daniel Schwartz, was called to the witness box, and he described Chapman as a paranoid schizophrenic.
I think he's basically a schizophrenic who has, to a certain extent, lived in a fantasy world for many years, who has also suffered from severe depressions, and who committed this awful act for many reasons, not the least of which was, without him quite being aware of it, an attempt to cope with his feelings of depression and suicide.
In his evidence, Dr. Schwartz said that at first Chapman had idolized the pop star and had started to believe he was John Lennon. But realizing he was losing his own identity, Chapman's adulation turned to hate. Lennon became an evil person he had to kill. Chapman, a loner who lived in a bizarre world of make-believe, claimed he'd received orders to kill Lennon from Satan and had defied God to do so.
John Lennon fell into a very deep hole, a hole that was so deep inside of me that I thought by killing him I would acquire his fame.
It was his lifelong dream to be famous. Surely Mark David Chapman, a chronic nobody, was in the thoughts of many of the 100,000 people who gathered in Central Park to mourn John Lennon. Chapman's arrest made news around the globe. He was one of the most hated men in the world.
I liked John Lennon at one point myself, before this thought of murder came inside myself. I would be very angry at anybody who did anything to him, so I can understand their anger. It's very difficult being who I am. I have to face what I've done every day. That's not easy. And I imagine this will go on until I die. I can face it now. I can look at what I did from a rational perspective, from even another perspective of, kind of placing myself back at that time and trying to analyze what I did, which I'm still undergoing, I used to love the Beatles and go along with anything they said. Their idealism meant a lot to me. And I saw that at that time as a sellout. I was just letting loose this tirade of, just an explosive anger at John Lennon.
Rich man, rich apartment.
Yes, that's it. Sellout.
Later at home, Mark remembers pulling out the album, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. It was 1979, and although the album was now 12 years old, this photograph of Lennon in an expensive satin uniform confirmed for Mark that Lennon had betrayed the idealism of the 60s. Mark bought a Charter Arms .38 pistol and a plane ticket for New York City. When he checked out of his job as a maintenance man for the last time, he signed John Lennon.
I turned to Satan because I knew I wouldn't have the strength to kill a man on my own. So I went through what I thought was an appropriate satanic ritual and took all my clothes off and chanted and screamed and howled. And
before the murder?
Yes. I asked Satan to give me the power to kill John Lennon.
Bring me back to December 8th, 1980.
It was a very long day. It was overcast. And I had been standing outside the Dakota for many hours, talking to the people that were there. All of a sudden, John Lennon comes out. I had bought Double Fantasy.
You bought this album that was very popular at that time.
Yes, it was. Paul kind of pushed me forward and said, there he is. So I went up to him and I stuck out my album. And I found the words and I said, John, would you sign my album?
Where did he sign?
right on Yoko's neck.
What did you write?
He wrote John Lennon, 1980. After it got dark, the hours went by, 2, 3, 4 hours, 5 hours. I had the gun in my pocket, and I had a copy of The Catcher in the Rye over the gun. So I'm sitting there. It's dark, and this limo pulls up. The driver didn't get out, but Yoko opened the back door. She didn't wait for John. She walked past me, and John got out, and he came up the pathway, and he looked at me also. I heard this voice, not an audible voice, but an inaudible voice saying over and over, "Do it, do it, do it, do it." I guess that was me inside. And I pulled the .38 revolver out of my pocket. I went into what's called a combat stance. I pulled the gun up. I used my left hand to buttress the gun underneath, and I fired at his back 5 steady shots. And at that point, for me, the movie stopped. I just stood there, just almost in a trance. The doorman, Jose, came over to me, and he had tears in his eyes. And he said, "Do you know what you've done? Do you know what you've done?" And the tears are streaming down his face. And he grabbed my arm, my right arm, and he shook. I mean, this is a brave man who grabs the arm of an armed man who has just shot somebody and shakes it, and the gun fell down and clattered on the concrete, and he kicked it away. And he said, "Get out of here." He says, "Please, please, just leave. Please get out of here." And I looked at him, and I said, "But where would I go?" 2 officers were holding John Lennon's body. And I remember the look on the officer's face and what he was mouthing, although I couldn't hear him, the one that was holding his head and his shoulders. And he was just violently cursing me. It was a horrible thing to see. And it frightened me to death. Here's this police officer, and he's just mouthing these horrible words at me. And I sat there for maybe another minute or so, and over in the corner of my eye, I see this figure come up to the window. It was Yoko Ono. She'd come over to the window of the patrol car, and she looked in, and I looked at her, and I'm devastated by her look. She just wanted to know who's this horrible monster that has killed John Lennon, my husband, and I want to see this rat, I want to see this creep. And I'm looking at her, and I just, utterly ashamed, a big coward, I turn away, and I can't even face her.
John Lennon died in the back of a squad car on the way to the hospital. He was 40 years old. Mark David Chapman was 25.
Do you remember where you were and what it felt like when John Lennon was shot?
I was in Ireland, and boy, were they sad. I tried to send Yoko a telegram, but unfortunately my idea of a girl-to-girl message at this point and contained obscenity, and the Irish post office wouldn't send it. So I had to keep changing it, lady-liking it up a little bit, and I finally could get something through. But I just wanted to say, shit, they got your man. I was angry. And they were just simply devastated. It seemed Of course, it's another instance of American insanity, which is always so hard to explain when you're abroad. It was very, very sad, and suddenly it seemed like the world was a very dangerous place. We didn't know anything about the guy who shot him, but that you could be John Lennon, a musician, coming home to your place of residence, and somebody's waiting for you who isn't, you know, a right-wing fanatic exactly either, or some kind of totally sinister government agent or anything, but just somebody who is so fascinated by your fame that they have planned your death. That was a new kind of phenomenon to us. We knew celebrity drove you crazy and stuff, and you could maybe off yourself behind it, but that people would stalk you for it, we'd never considered.
The producer comes out, and he's white as a ghost. And I said, what's the matter? He says, my wife just called me and told me that John's been shot. And I said, get out. I said, that's terrible. I said, because you know I'm going to see him. That's terrible of you to say. I said, I'm not working anymore. He said, no, I'm serious. I said, come on. He said, oh. So the phone rings, he runs back inside. So now I'm still taking the mics and winding the wires up, and he comes out, and he's like, it's like, he's worse than he was before. And I said, what's the matter? I said, you look terrible. What happened? He said, John's dead. I said, you know, Dave, it's a horrible thing to say. He says, no, I'm serious. I said, all right, yeah, John's dead. So I said, okay, let me go inside and make a phone call. So I go inside and I call May Pang at her apartment. And I call her up, and she's screaming. Did you hear what happened? I said, this is true? She said, yes. And I said, she said, I can't talk to you now. I said, I'll talk to you later. So I just got up in a complete stupor, and I walked out of the studio. I didn't shut the electricity off. I didn't take the tape off the machines. I didn't shut anything down. The lights were on. I just walked out. When I got home, my wife was up, and she heard the news. And I think for the next 6 hours, all he did was cry. I felt like they shot my brother. I mean, it's like somebody punched me in the gut. I mean, took my breath away. The next day, I was like, I called May. I said, what's going on? She said, I'm going to, come over here. So I went over to her house, and me and, I should say May and I and this other person, Arlene, the three of us just sat around and hugged each other and cried, because this was like a family. We were like a family. I mean, John had worked with us for 3 years. Boy, it was like family to us. And the only thing that I hold, if any kind of regret, the only thing I can hold against Yoko was the fact that she didn't let any of his people that worked with John see him. That she had him cremated the following day. There was no wake. We never got to see him. We don't know what happened. We don't know where the ashes are. Not that, I'm not going to go to his urn and kneel in front of it, but just to say, goodbye to a dear friend.
He loved America, but he didn't like the Vietnam War. He didn't like what the FBI were doing to him. He believed in legalization of drugs. He took drugs. He believed in self-expression. And the greatest tragedy really was his death. But he's left an imprint.
By the standards of great musicians, he wasn't a great musician, but he was a great man. I mean, he was one of the originals of this century. No question about it.
Look into my eyes like a window. Wherever it takes me, I will know. In spite of all the danger, I will go. You know just what I'll find, what I'll see there. As long as you're with me, I don't care. 'Cause in spite of all the danger, I'll be there. You're the only one that keeps me satisfied. Oh, oh, oh. You're the only love that makes the world seem right. The world seem right. show me